Have you ever considered what you would do in an SHTF scenario if you were forced to detain or confine somebody for any extended period of time? Do you have access to a room that would allow you to do that in a secure fashion that wouldn't jeopardize the safety of you and your family? That's something that occurred to me when I was actually doing some spring cleaning today. And obviously this is our dog kennel, yet I was taking a look at it and thinking about what exactly would I need to do to fortify this situation in order to confine a human being within if that emergency ever arose. Understand that most situations involving violent crime today, which accounts for about 15% of total crime here in the US during a relative time of peace, so during SHTF, I think that would definitely escalate very quickly. Keep in mind that most of those interactions still don't justify the use of lethal force. And with that being known, during an SHTF scenario, how often would you possibly need to confine somebody, not only to get them away from you and your family, but possibly even to protect them from themselves? There's a lot of situations that could arise where the ability to hold somebody temporarily might be necessary and more reasonable than jumping right to a lethal force situation. It really just depends on the situation. And don't underestimate the fact that somebody in your group or in your inner circle might snap and actually need some sort of confinement in order to make sure that they don't create any harm for themselves or the people around them. And these are all considerations that you need to be making. Now, as fortifying something like this unit right here is not going to be easy to do on the fly, especially if you're trying to confine somebody within it and fixing it up during the time that they're being held, whether or not it's with restraints or by somebody else's physical ability. That's not an easy project to accomplish in that moment. So honestly, do you have a room in your house? Do you have a room in your apartment? Do you have a room anywhere near you, or maybe a shed or something along those lines that doesn't have easily escapable windows, that doesn't have a way to easily break out of, or any of those things? Or is this a consideration that has never crossed your mind before? I think it's something that's worth discussing, because we can't assume we're going to jump right to any kind of lethality depending on the situation. And having these available options is important. For this situation, I'd obviously have to fortify the door back there and brace it from behind and have ways to lock it from behind so that there's a second point of entry, but at the same time you couldn't necessarily leave through it. I would also have to raise up the steel gate and everything else that would require it to be human-proof rather than dog-proof, right? But at the same time, thinking about it now and giving myself some ideas about what I could do in the sense of creating some kind of a confinement center could be the difference of dealing with that situation in a way that's more reasonable during those times. I think that's important. Understand that the average jail cell is about 6 feet by 8 feet. They're made with brick, stone, or concrete, and then obviously they have steel or iron bars that allow for airflow and visibility so you can keep an eye on what's happening within said jail cell. So if you're thinking about constructing something or putting something together, you can keep those dimensions and those materials in mind as things you might want to utilize in order to make sure it's as secure as possible. And the other items you could use in order to temporarily confine or restrain somebody would be things like flex cuffs, which are zip ties basically made out of handcuffs, which then you can use at least temporarily because they are disposable one-time use items, but they're very inexpensive. And I'll even link some of this stuff below in the comments as well as in the description. So that way, if you're trying to get a little more prepared in the sense of possible confinement of somebody dangerous, you're more able to. You could also get, traditional steel handcuffs. You could also get leg shackles as well, and they even have what's called transport chains, which is basically what you see during prisoner transport, where you have shackles on your arms and your legs, and then they're chained together as one unit. These are all things that are available to us right now on public marketplaces, as well as the fact that we can kind of do some homebrew stuff if we need to in the sense of zip ties and everything else. But one thing I want you to keep in mind is that once you have those things on hand, you have them, and you may never need them. Hopefully you never need them, but you have them and they're readily available to you if that time ever arises. I like options. I don't ever put myself in a singular camp of it's one way or the other. There's never a situation that arises where the answer is easily black or white. Sometimes the gray area is where things come into play, and being able to confine or detain somebody might keep you out of trouble and might help de-escalate a situation that otherwise would have created more problems for you down the road. The other thing to keep in mind, and this is just purely speculation, but if you ever had to question somebody or find out information based on maybe some malicious activity in your area, confinement sometimes is a good way to start that process. I'm just going to throw that out there. But these are considerations we need to make, and we don't talk about this kind of stuff very often because it's not generally considered. However, I do think there's a place for it, and I think that at least having a concept in mind as to where you would have to perform such actions would be a good thing to have already predetermined and planned out properly. Just want to give you some tips and advice. Look, there's a lot happening in the world right now, and the best thing we can do is be progressive and also be open-minded to different concepts and ideas. Is there a situation that will arise where you're going to have to confine somebody? I hope not. But if a bad situation unfolds and you don't have any other option besides possibly lethal force, are you going to wish you had a separate option? Are you going to wish you had a way to deal with somebody who might not be a threat but is an unknown or a stranger without taking your eye off of them? There's a lot of different considerations that we'd have to make in those times, and during SHTF, the more options, the better. At least that's my opinion. So this is a project I might put together and start working on just to get some, base model ideas out of the way to just see if there's a possibility here to make this a little bit more, let's just say secure in the sense of keeping somebody in it if they were ever making me a problem. But at the end of the day, there might be better options for me even here within my own home that would outweigh this whole situation. But just the thought of it and just taking a look at it made me feel like this was worth sharing with you all, because in all honesty, I think it's something we don't talk about very often. So if you have any questions or you have any advice about making a confinement cell of some kind or having a way to detain somebody for a period of time if need be, leave it in the comments below. Help other people get ideas, give them suggestions, give them advice, and just give people some things to think about when it comes to their preparedness plan. And if you ever need anything else from me, magicprepper.com is a good place to go. Got a contact form there, and the link to the Discord is there as well, where we all talk about different preparedness things, and we also try to network where we have channels of all 50 states as well as some other countries too. So make sure you check that out. And without anything else to say about what we would do with those people during an SHTF event, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.